Miller and Terror raced through the dark corridors of the Thunderchild, their helmet lights casting long shadows on the walls. Time was running out. They had less than 7 minutes before the raiders opened fire on the Starseeker. "The bridge first," Miller said, leading the way. "If anything's still working, the main controls will be there." "This is foolish," Ter muttered, but followed anyway. "Even if we find the power core, a ship this old couldn't possibly." She stopped mid-sentence as they entered the bridge. Unlike the rest of the ship, this room seemed almost pristine, as if preserved in time. The control panels, though covered in dust, showed no signs of battle damage or decay. Miller immediately went to work, connecting his portable power unit to what he guessed was the main console. "Check the engineering station," he told Ter. "Look for anything about the power systems." 6 minutes remaining. Cax's voice crackled through their radios. "The raiders are getting impatient." Miller's fingers flew across the ancient controls, wiping away dust and searching for any sign of life. The portable power unit hummed, pushing energy into the ship's dormant systems. Suddenly, a faint blue light flickered across the console. Miller held his breath as text began scrolling across the screen. "Emergency power DTECTE. HFY systems, check. Atlas AIKERNEL loading." "It's working," Miller exclaimed. "The ship's AI is still intact." "Impossible," Ter said, her antenna twitching in disbelief. "No AI from that era could survive this long without degradation." The screen flickered again, and a synthetic voice emerged from the bridge speakers, weak but clear. "Human life sign detected. Please verify authorization." Miller's heart raced. "This is James Miller, Earth Defense Force Scientific Division. Emergency override protocol." There was a pause, then. "DNA scan confirms human ancestry. Emergency protocols engage. I am Atlas, primary control eye of the HSS Thunderchild. Ship status: critical. Multiple systems damaged or offline." "Atlas," Miller said quickly, "we have hostile ships preparing to attack. Can you get any weapons online?" 5 minutes, Cax warned through the radio. The A's response was immediate. "Main reactor in standby mode. Emergency startup possible but dangerous. Weapons systems intact but unpowered. Warning, full activation sequence requires." A violent tremor shook the ship, cutting off Atlas's words. "What was that?" Ter asked, gripping a nearby railing. "The raiders are getting bored," Miller growled. "They're taking pot shots at us." 4 minutes, came Cax's increasingly worried voice. Miller made a decision. "Atlas, begin emergency reactor startup. Override all safety protocols. Warning, such action may result in catastrophic failure." "Better than certain death," Miller replied. "Do it." Deep within the ship, machinery that had slept for a century began to move. The deck plates vibrated as ancient systems whirred to life. Warning lights flashed across the bridge consoles. "Reactor startup initiated," Atlas announced. "Power at 5% and climbing." Miller turned to Ter. "Can you handle the pilot station? The controls should be similar to basic human designs." Ter studied the console before her. Similar enough. But even with power, this ship is too old to fight. The raiders will tear us apart. Another impact rocked the ship. 3 minutes. "Power at 15%, Atlas reported. "Weapon systems beginning preliminary startup." Miller worked frantically, redirecting power to essential systems. With each passing second, more of the bridge came alive, panels lighting up like stars appearing in the evening sky. "The raiders are targeting the Starseeker's engines," Cax shouted through the radio. "Power at 30%, Atlas announced. "Warning, multiple system anomalies detected." The bridge shook again, harder this time. Warning klaxons began to sound throughout the ship. 2 minutes. "Atlas," Miller called out, "forget the safety checks. Give me weapons control now." Inadvisable. Weapon systems are not fully calibrated. Risk of malfunction. Override. Authorization Miller 77 Delta. The weapons console lit up under Miller's hands. Target displays flickered to life, showing the positions of the raider ships. 1 minute until they opened fire. Tyr's hands flew across the pilot's controls. Maneuvering thrusters responding. We have limited mobility. Power at 45%. Atlas reported. Main guns charging. Miller allowed himself a grim smile as the ancient warship hummed with growing power around him. The raiders had dismissed the Thunderchild as a relic, a piece of space junk. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The raiders attacked in formation, their ships moving with practiced precision. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled space with deadly light, all aimed at the Thunderchild. But the ancient warship moved like a dancer through the storm of fire, each shot mysteriously fading away before it could strike. Multiple targeting solutions available, Atlas announced. Enemy vessels displaying standard pirate tactics. Threat assessment, minimal. Miller watched the tactical display as the raiders split into two groups, trying to catch the Thunderchild in a crossfire. Atlas, let's show them something they've never seen before. Acknowledged. Initiating advanced combat protocols. The Thunderchild's response was devastating. Its phase cannons fired in rapid succession, each shot precisely calculated. Two raider ships simply disappeared, their matter scattered across dimensions by weapons they couldn't comprehend. By all that's sacred, Tyr whispered, her hand steady on the controls despite her awe. The technology required for this, it shouldn't exist. The remaining raiders broke formation, panic evident in their chaotic movements. Their captain's voice crackled across the comm, no longer confident but desperate. Fall back. Fall back. What kind of demon ship is this? 3 hostile vessels attempting to retreat. Atlas reported. 2 maintaining attack pattern. Warning. Detecting energy buildup in enemy vessels. They appear to be preparing suicide runs. Miller's fingers flew across the tactical console. Tyr, evasive pattern Delta. Atlas, can we disable them without destroying them? Affirmative. Switching to electromagnetic pulse configuration. The Thunderchild pivoted gracefully, its weapons shifting from lethal white to a subtle blue. The pulse that emerged caught both attacking raiders, shutting down their systems instantly and leaving them drifting helplessly in space. Star Seeker, what's your status? Miller called over the radio. Minor damage to outer hull, Cax replied, his voice filled with disbelief. But how? That ship, your ship. A warning alarm cut through the moment of victory. The 3 retreating raiders had regrouped and were charging their weapons again. They're targeting the Star Seeker. Terror called out. Miller's response was immediate. Atlas, maximum thrust. Get us between them and the research vessel. The Thunderchild's engines roared, pushing the massive warship into position. The raiders fired everything they had. A desperate, final assault. Impact in 3 seconds, Atlas announced calmly. Activating quantum mirror shield. What happened next defied the laws of physics as most races understood them. The raiders' combined firepower struck the Thunderchild's shields and bounced back, amplified and reversed. The attacking ships barely had time to register their own weapons coming back at them before they were consumed by their own fire. Silence fell across the battlefield. Where 7 deadly raider ships had been, only the 2 disabled vessels remained, floating helplessly in space. All hostile ships neutralized, Atlas reported. No further threats detected. Might I suggest we assist the Star Seeker with repairs? Miller let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Yes, good idea. Tyr, bring us alongside. And Atlas, thank you. Gratitude is unnecessary. I am merely fulfilling my primary function, the defense of human life and interests. The bridge crew of the Star Seeker stared in stunned silence as the Thunderchild maneuvered next to their ship, its hull now gleaming with power, all traces of age and decay gone. It looked like it had just emerged from Earth's shipyards, proud and powerful. Miller, Cax's voice came through, subdued and respectful. I believe we owe you and your Relic an apology. Miller smiled as he watched repair drones deploy from the Thunderchild's hull, beginning work on the Starseeker's damage. No apology needed, sir, but maybe this will help everyone understand why humans don't share all their technology. A wise policy, Atlas added. As demonstrated today, appearances can be deceiving. As the repair work continued, Miller couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the Thunderchild held. One thing was certain, this was just the beginning of a much bigger story. The legend of the Thunderchild wasn't just being remembered, it was being reborn. And somewhere out in the galaxy, word was spreading. Beware of human relics. They might just be more than they appear. The Thunderchild's bridge pulsed with energy as systems continued powering up. Warning lights flashed across every console as the ancient reactor strained to reach full power. Miller's hands danced across the weapons controls while Tur wrestled with the helm. 30 seconds until Raiders opened fire. Cax's voice crackled through the radio. Power at 60%, Atlas announced. Main weapons charging. Warning, reactor temperature exceeding recommended limits. The Raiders had noticed the Thunderchild coming to life. 2 of their ships broke formation, moving to target the awakening warship. Multiple weapon locks detected. Atlas reported. Enemy vessels charging weapons. Miller's fingers flew across the tactical display. Atlas, what's our shield status? Shields at 40% capacity. Insufficient power for full coverage. Another impact rocked the ship. The Raiders were done waiting. All ships, open fire. The Raider captain's voice boomed across all channels. Time seemed to slow as deadly energy beams lanced out from the Raider vessels. Miller watched in horror as the first shot struck the Starseeker, its weak shields flickering under the assault. Atlas, we need those weapons now. Power at 75%. Weapons ready for emergency firing. Miller didn't hesitate. He targeted the nearest Raider ship and pressed the firing control. The Thunderchild shuddered as its main guns roared to life for the first time in a century. What happened next stunned everyone watching. Instead of the conventional energy beams they expected, the Thunderchild's weapons released pulses of brilliant white light. Where they struck the first Raider ship, its shield simply ceased to exist. The second shot cut through the unprotected hull like it was paper, splitting the vessel in two. By the stars, Tur whispered, her antenna frozen in shock. Even the Raiders stopped firing, seemingly stunned by the display of power from the supposedly ancient vessel. Atlas, Miller asked, his voice shaking slightly. What kind of weapons are these? Phase displacement cannons, the AI replied. Prototype technology. Details classified. The Raider captain's voice boomed across the comm channels again, but this time with a note of fear. All ships, concentrate fire on that human vessel. Destroy it now. The remaining Raiders turned their guns on the Thunderchild, filling space with deadly energy beams. But something else impossible happened. Where the shots should have struck the ship's shields, they simply vanished. Quantum deflection field at 100% efficiency, Atlas reported calmly. No damage sustained. Miller stared at his tactical display in amazement. The Thunderchild wasn't just advanced for its time. It was advanced by any standards. The ship was using technology he'd never even heard of. Power now at 90%, Atlas announced. All primary systems online. Analyzing tactical situation. The bridge hummed with energy as more systems came online. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing detailed information about the Raider ships, their weaknesses, their blind spots, even the stressed looks on their crews' faces. This is impossible, Tur said, watching as her pilot's console expanded into a 3-dimensional control interface. This technology, it's beyond anything we have today. Miller felt a grin spreading across his face. Atlas, are you combat ready? Affirmative. All weapons systems optimal. Tactical analysis complete. Shall we demonstrate this vessel's full capabilities? The raiders had regrouped and were preparing another attack run. Their initial fear was giving way to desperate anger. If you surrender now, Miller broadcast to the raiders, we'll let you leave with your ships intact. The only response was another barrage of weapon fire, harmlessly absorbed by the Thunderchild's impossible defenses. I believe, Atlas said, with what almost sounded like satisfaction. That would be a no. Miller nodded grimly. Then let's show them exactly what this relic can do. Atlas, engage combat protocols. Bring us about to face their main formation. The Thunderchild's engines flared to life with a deep, thunderous roar that seemed to shake the very fabric of space. The ship moved with impossible grace for its size, its hull gleaming with power as dormant systems awakened fully. The raiders were about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating human technology, and Miller couldn't help but think that somewhere, the Thunderchild's original crew would be proud to see their ship roaring back to life, ready to fight one more battle. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before the research vessel Star Seeker. Its sleek hull, adorned with various scientific instruments, moved steadily through the darkness. Inside, a team of researchers from the Galactic Archaeological Society worked diligently at their stations, scanning the debris field they had recently discovered. Another worthless piece of space junk, muttered lead researcher Cax, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. The tall, gray-skinned alien turned to his human colleague with a look of boredom. Miller, I don't understand why Central insisted we investigate this sector. There's nothing but ancient debris here. James Miller, the only human aboard and junior researcher, kept his eyes fixed on his scanner display. He had learned to ignore Cax's constant complaints over the past 6 months. The human's presence on the expedition was merely a political courtesy, a gesture of inclusion toward the youngest spacefaring race in the Galactic Council. The scanner suddenly beeped, catching Miller's attention. His eyes widened as he studied the readings. "Sir, you might want to see this," he called out, his voice steady despite his growing excitement. Cax lumbered over, his long limbs carrying him across the bridge in 3 strides. "What now, Miller?" "Another piece of primitive human technology." "Much bigger than that," Miller replied, transferring the scan data to the main view screen. "It's a ship, and based on these readings, it's largely intact." The massive form slowly emerged from the darkness as the Star Seeker's lights illuminated its hull. Even covered in cosmic dust and battle scars, the ship's silhouette was unmistakable to Miller. His heart nearly stopped when he saw the faded letters on its hull. HSTHUNDRCH. "Impossible," he whispered, earning curious looks from his alien colleagues. "You recognize this vessel?" asked Ter, the ship's pilot, her antenna twitching with mild interest. Miller nodded, his voice filled with awe. "Every human child knows this ship. The HSS Thunderchild. She disappeared during humanity's first interstellar war, over 100 years ago. She was part of Earth's original defense fleet." The aliens exchanged amused glances. Cax let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "A human warship. From your species' early space age." He gestured dismissively. "It's practically an antique, a relic of a primitive time." "With all due respect, sir," Miller said, trying to keep his voice level, "the Thunderchild was one of our most advanced ships. Her disappearance is one of the greatest mysteries in human military history." "Advanced?" Tyr chuckled, her antenna bobbing. "Your species had barely mastered faster-than-light travel when this ship was built. What could possibly be advanced about it?" Miller bit back a sharp reply. Instead, he focused on his console, gathering more data. The ship was surprisingly well preserved, protected from decay by the vacuum of space. Its hull showed signs of intense battle damage, but the core structure remained intact. "Request permission to lead a boarding party," Miller said, looking up at Cax. "This is a significant historical find. especially for human history. Cax waved a long-fingered hand dismissively. Very well. Document your relic if you must, but make it quick. We have more promising sites to investigate. As the Star Seeker maneuvered closer to the Thunderchild, Miller couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this ship than met the eye. He had studied the classified files about the early defense fleet, and something didn't add up. The Thunderchild's hull was made of materials that shouldn't have existed during that era of human spaceflight. The boarding party assembled in the airlock. Miller, Tur, and 2 security officers named Rek and Pan. As they prepared their exploration suits, Miller caught the others smirking at his obvious excitement. Try not to get too emotional over your ancestors' primitive attempt at spaceflight, Rek teased, checking his safety harness. Miller simply smiled. Let them laugh, he thought. Something told him the Thunderchild still had secrets to share, secrets that might wipe those smirks right off their alien faces. The airlock cycled, and they pushed off toward the ancient warship. As they approached, Miller's helmet lights illuminated the scared hull, revealing weapon impacts and scorch marks that told of a fierce battle. Whatever had happened to the Thunderchild, she hadn't gone down without a fight. And somewhere deep in his gut, Miller knew she wasn't done fighting yet. The exploration team had barely started their investigation of the Thunderchild when the Star Seeker's emergency alarm began blaring. Miller's radio crackled with the panicked voice of the ship's communication officer. Multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace. The officer shouted. They're not responding to hails, and their weapons are hot. Miller and his team rushed to the nearest viewport. In the distance, 7 warships had appeared, their angular shapes reminiscent of predatory creatures. Their hulls were black as space itself, making them nearly invisible except for the ominous red glow of their engine arrays. Raiders, Tur whispered, her antenna going flat against her head in fear. The Scarlet Band. They're the worst of the frontier pirates. The Star Seeker was a research vessel, equipped with basic shields but no weapons. They were completely defenseless against even one raider ship, let alone 7. Miller watched as the hostile vessels spread out in an attack formation, cutting off any escape route. Everyone back to the Star Seeker, Cax ordered through the radio. We need to evacuate immediately. The team started making their way back, but Miller hesitated, looking around the Thunderchild's dusty bridge. Something about abandoning the legendary warship felt wrong, especially with danger approaching. Back aboard the Star Seeker, chaos reigned. The crew rushed between stations, sending distress signals and trying to plot an escape route. But the raiders had positioned themselves too well. They were trapped. Any response to our distress calls? Cax demanded, his 4 eyes darting between different display screens. Negative, sir, the communications officer replied. We're too far from any patrol routes. The nearest help is at least 6 hours away. The main screen lit up as a transmission came through from the raider fleet. A scared reptilian face appeared, yellow eyes gleaming with malice. Research vessel Star Seeker. The raider captain's voice rumbled through the speakers. Your ship and cargo are now our property. Surrender, and we might let your crew survive as slaves. Cax's gray skin paled even further. We're a scientific vessel, he protested. We carry nothing of value. The raider captain laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Your advanced research equipment will fetch a good price. You have 10 minutes to lower your shields, or we start shooting. And trust me, you don't want us to start shooting. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in horrified silence. Options, Cax asked, looking around at his crew. Our shields won't last 5 minutes against their weapons, Tyr reported grimly. We can't outrun them, and we can't fight back. Miller stood at his station, mind racing. He kept thinking about the Thunderchild, about its legendary status in human military history. Ships didn't become legends for nothing. Sir, he said suddenly, let me go back to the Thunderchild. The alien crew stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. Now is not the time for your historical research, Miller, Cax snapped. We're about to be killed or enslaved. That's exactly why we need to try something, Miller insisted. The Thunderchild was one of humanity's most advanced warships. If there's even a chance I can get some of its systems online. That ancient relic. Rek interrupted with a harsh laugh. It's been dead in space for 100 years. What do you think you're going to do with it? Anything is better than waiting here to die. Miller shot back. He turned to Cax. Sir, please, let me try. What do we have to lose? Cax looked at the countdown timer. 8 minutes until the raiders opened fire. His shoulders slumped in resignation. Fine, he said. Take whatever equipment you need, but hurry. Miller grabbed a portable powered unit and diagnostic tools. As he prepared to head back to the airlock, Tur stepped forward. I'm going with you, she said firmly. You'll need a pilot if by some miracle you get that relic working. Miller nodded gratefully. Together, they made their way back to the Thunderchild through the vacuum of space. Behind them, the raider ships loomed like hungry predators, their weapons primed and ready. As they entered the ancient warship's airlock, Miller's hand brushed against the ship's nameplate, clearing away decades of cosmic dust. Beneath it, barely visible, was the ship's motto in faded letters. Non desistis, non exeris. Never give up, never surrender. Miller allowed himself a small smile. Now it was time to see if the old girl could live up to her motto. In the aftermath of the battle, the Star Seeker's crew gathered on the Thunderchild's bridge, their eyes wide as they took in the advanced technology surrounding them. The ship's internal lighting had fully activated, revealing pristine control stations and holographic displays that seemed centuries ahead of their time. Atlas, Miller asked, I think it's time we knew the truth about this ship. What exactly was the Thunderchild's real purpose? The eye was silent for a moment, as if considering. Then the main view screen lit up with classified files and technical specifications that made even the most experienced alien engineers gasp. The HS Thunderchild was not merely a warship, Atlas began. It was Earth's first and most advanced prototype vessel, designed to test technologies that humanity wasn't ready to reveal to the galaxy. Historical images flashed across the screen. Secret shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, laboratories buried deep beneath Earth's oceans, and scientists working on technology that seemed impossible for their era. While humanity appeared to be struggling with basic spaceflight, they were actually developing technologies that even today's most advanced races haven't mastered. Atlas continued. The Thunderchild served as the test bed for these innovations. Cax stepped forward, his 4 eyes fixed on the technical readouts. These power readings, they're beyond anything in our database. How did humans achieve this level of technology so quickly? We didn't, Miller replied, understanding dawning in his eyes. We always had it. The slow technological progress humanity showed the galaxy was a careful act. Correct, Atlas confirmed. Earth's leaders recognized early that revealing their true technological capabilities would cause panic among other races. The decision was made to appear less advanced, while secretly preparing defenses against potential threats. Tur studied the ship's specifications with professional interest. The quantum mirror shield, the phase displacement cannons, these weren't experimental technologies at all, were they? They were perfected systems disguised as prototypes. The Thunderchild carried 19 classified technologies that remained superior to current galactic standards. Atlas explained. Her disappearance was not an accident, but a calculated move to prevent these technologies from being discovered before the right time. The aliens exchanged worried looks as they realized the implications. Humanity, the supposedly young and primitive race, had been quietly maintaining a technological advantage for over a century. But why reveal this now? Cax asked, turning to Miller. Why let us see all this? Miller gestured to the disabled raider ships visible through the viewport. Because the galaxy is changing. The raiders are getting bolder, pushing into civilized space. Maybe it's time humanity stopped hiding its strength. Terminal alert, Atlas suddenly announced. Detecting activation of deep space quantum beacon. The Thunderchild's return has been noticed. New data appeared on the screens, ships moving across star charts, communications being exchanged between hidden bases, and defense platforms coming online throughout human space. It appears, Atlas said, that protocol revelation has been automatically initiated. The Thunderchild's reactivation was a predetermined trigger point. Miller watched as more classified files unlocked themselves, revealing the true extent of human military capability. Hidden fleets, advanced defense networks, and technology that bordered on the miraculous, all carefully concealed until this moment. This is why humans always seem so confident despite their apparent technological disadvantages, Tur realized. You never needed to catch up to the rest of the galaxy. You were ahead all along. The Thunderchild was just one piece of a much larger strategy, Atlas confirmed. Her return signals the beginning of a new era in galactic relations. The bridge fell silent as everyone processed the magnitude of what they were witnessing. The discovery of the Thunderchild hadn't just saved them from raiders. It had pulled back the curtain on one of the greatest deceptions in galactic history. What happens now? Cax asked quietly. Miller looked at the stars through the viewport, thinking about how the galaxy would change once this news spread. Now we stop pretending. The Thunderchild wasn't just a ship. She was a message in a bottle, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. And as if to emphasize his words, the ship's engines hummed to life, ready to carry its crew and its secrets back to human space. The time for hiding was over. The journey back to Earth became a historic moment that none aboard would ever forget. The Thunderchild led the way, with the Star Seeker following in its wake. News of their arrival spread quickly through human space, and ships emerged from hidden docks to escort them home. Multiple vessels detected, Atlas announced. Identifying. Human Defense Fleet ships declassifying their signatures. 23 warships of similar class to Thunderchild now visible. The alien crew watched in amazement as advanced human vessels dropped their stealth fields, appearing like ghosts materializing from the void. Each ship bore the same sleek design as the Thunderchild, their hulls gleaming with barely contained power. All this time, Cax muttered, your patrol ships, your merchants, they were just decoys. Miller nodded. The ships you saw were real, but they weren't our only ships. We maintained 2 fleets, one for show, and one for when showing became unnecessary. The fleets surrounded them in an honor guard formation as they approached Earth. The planet's orbital defenses became visible, far more numerous and advanced than anything officially recorded in galactic databases. Incoming transmission from Earth Defense Command, Atlas reported. The main screen lit up with the image of Fleet Admiral Parker, her uniform adorned with symbols the alien crew had never seen before. Welcome home, Thunderchild, she said, smiling. And welcome to our guests from the Star Seeker. Your encounter with the raiders has accelerated our timeline, but perhaps that's for the best. Cax stepped forward. Admiral, I must ask, why reveal everything now? Your deception was clearly working. Because the galaxy is changing, Parker replied. The raiders you encountered aren't just isolated pirates. They're the beginning of a wave of threats that will require all spacefaring races to stand together. Humanity can no longer justify keeping our capabilities hidden while others suffer. As if to emphasize her point, data began streaming to the Star Seeker, detailed reports of growing dangers on the galactic rim, threats that would require a united response from all civilized worlds. The fleet escorted them to Earth's primary space dock, a massive structure that shimmered in and out of normal space, protected by technologies that defied conventional physics. As they docked, Miller could see hundreds of ships being retrofitted with advanced human systems. The Galactic Council will have questions, Tur said, watching the activity through the viewport. Let them ask, Miller replied. We're ready to answer. The Thunderchild's return marks the end of humanity's hidden age. Admiral Parker's image returned to the screen. Dr. Miller, your alien colleagues have been cleared to observe the Thunderchild's reintegration process. Consider it our first step toward true technological cooperation. Over the next few days, the Starseeker's crew witnessed humanity's transformation from a seemingly minor power to a revealed giant. The shock of discovery gave way to understanding, as humans shared the reasoning behind their long deception. "Your species truly feared our reaction that much?" Cax asked Miller as they watched the Thunderchild receive its official recommissioning ceremony. "We feared panic, yes. But more than that, we feared that sharing advanced technology too quickly would destabilize galactic society. We needed to know who we could trust." Atlas, now fully integrated into Earth's defense network, added its perspective. The Thunderchild's mission was always dual purpose: to protect humanity and to judge when the time was right for revelation. The ceremony concluded with a demonstration of the Thunderchild's capabilities, performed before representatives from every spacefaring race. The display left no doubt about humanity's technological prowess, but it was the offer of cooperation that followed that truly changed everything. "The Raiders taught us all a valuable lesson," Miller said, standing with his alien colleagues as they prepared to depart. "We're stronger together than apart." The Thunderchild didn't just wake up from her long sleep. She woke up the entire galaxy to a new reality. As the Starseeker departed Earth orbit, its crew now honored as the first witnesses to humanity's great revelation, Cax turned to Miller with newfound respect. "You know, Miller, I believe I owe you an apology about that Relic comment." Miller laughed. "Keep it. Sometimes the best way to protect something valuable is to let others underestimate it. But those days are over now." They watched as the Thunderchild joined Earth's now visible defense fleet, no longer a hidden legend, but a proud symbol of humanity's true place in the galaxy. The age of secrets had ended, and a new era of cooperation was beginning. All because a supposedly dead ship had roared back to life, reminding everyone that appearances can be deceiving, and that humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to surprise.